Well, good evening. As he introduced myself, my name's Philip Day. I'm the CEO of Scotgold Resources. I joined the company in 2021, of April 2021, and most of the story I'm going to tell you about tonight is what we've been doing since basically April 2021 and into 2022. And then obviously what we're planning to do for 2023. So who are we? Scotgold is, and I'm very proud to be able to say this, is Scotland's only gold producing asset company. We operate within the Loch Lomond National Park. That comes with obviously its challenges, but also comes with its rewards. But I like to sit here on this photo many a times when I do these presentations to just show people the size of the footprint that this mine has in comparison to the size of the glen. This glen has had lots and lots of history, obviously. I mean, I'm not a Scotsman, I'm Australian, and I love to hear the stories about all the battles and the like that have gone on around here. But maybe you might even note that a lot of these trees and the like in this area, none of which I believe are actually native to the area. So when I talk about our mine, I'll also talk about the amount of money that we are donating and or helping with the Loch Lomond Trust, I think it's called, Trust, to reintroduce the Scottish pine back into the area as well. So there's lots and lots of positives with that as well. So what does this picture show? This picture shows a portal here of our underground mine. So all of our mining is done underground. We don't have like a big cavity sort of hole that you might see in an open pit. And then we have a process plant there that sits on the side of the mountain. That's our admin buildings. And that's it. So from an eyesore perspective, a lot of the people, because we share the track here that comes up along there to Ben Louis, is that correct? With walkers and the like, when they sit down here, a lot of them make comments to us that they just can't hear and they can't see anything. And that was literally the way that the place was constructed and the way that the place was operated. Disclaimer, as you've all been through, I'm not going to read that. All right, so who are we? So we're, as I said, we're the first operating or the only commercial gold and silver mine within Scotland. We are aiming to get to a run rate of 23,000 to 24,000 ounces by the run rate of per month by the back end of this year, and then taking that into 2024. And at the same time as we've been operating and getting the process plant and the mine up to that run rate, we've also been doing a lot of exploration, particularly around the vein that we have. It's a gold bearing vein. Looks like it happened to actually get shifted as a tertiary event, one to the southwest, one to the northeast. So we've been doing all these VLF programs and magnetics and all these wonderful technical terms to basically say there's gold that's been shifted here and shifted there. And also the way that the mine was set up originally, it was set up on the principle to spend the minimum amount of money possible and get it into operations, get it to cash flow, and then once cash flow comes, then expand. So a lot of the drill rigs that were put all of a sudden show that the ore body stops at this magical 300 metre number, but I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure that one out, that it doesn't actually stop there. So the growth for us is very exciting, because now that we've got development tunnels in, which I'll bore you all with mining stuff very, very soon, which I hope you find incredibly interesting, means that we are able to put drill rigs in and actually start to drill down onto that vein and hopefully double the size of the mine. One of the very interesting bits, this one here, when we started back in 2021, we had the inordinate challenge of obviously coming out of COVID, which presented lots and lots of interesting things for us. But we also had the challenge of how do we get people to operate a mine and an operating plant within a country that doesn't have a whole lot of veterans of mining people that have been doing mining for 20 or 30 odd years. And we've had to go from about 15 people to now we employ over 100. And how do you do that? Because underground mining is not easy. It's extremely difficult, challenging, and can be dangerous, because this is not like coal mining. This is what's called rock hard mining, which you have to do drilling and you have to do blasting and you have to do scooping and the like. So we had to do a lot of training. But we now have 65 people in our company are Scottish. We've been able to train them all. We have a lot of them that are qualified as shot firers, and some of them now are supervisors and superintendents, and they're learning rapidly. And obviously we put a lot of effort into our apprenticeship schemes and the like. And what our real goal is, we want to actually be the employer of choice, because there are some people now that have really chosen this company to be, their soul, and that is something that we're really wanting to get more and more of. And obviously if we grow, that's just going to help, because we're going to then be able to employ multiples of these hundreds of people with different assets. The thing I was trying to explain to you before about operating within the national park or operating within Scotland, the positive that it's come with is that when we produce, because we produce two forms of products, one being a concentrate, and that we sell to overseas markets, and I'll explain the offtake that we have with that. But the one that's probably very exciting is this gravity form of gold that we can then melt on site, refine within the UK, and then sell it to whoever wants to buy it. I've had a ridiculous amount of people come to our mine site and want to buy the gold to put on Bentleys as their trim, or jewellery, or bars and this, that. The jewellers here in Edinburgh, though, came up with the best case for us, and they pay an extremely healthy premium. Exciting for us, because now we're getting some like 1 kilo or 2 kilograms of gold that's been sent to the jewellers, and we're getting some healthy checks that are coming through because of that. Now, responsible mining. I do like to talk about this one, because everyone talks about it and talks about ESG principles and so on and so forth. We operate a gold mine in the National Park of Scotland. You can only just imagine the regulations that we have to operate under. All right? The way the place was designed, the plant was designed, the mine was designed, it had some very clever things put into it. These things called dry stack tailings and the like. But if I have one incident of anything going down the river, it's like phone calls, alarms, police, blah, 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 blah. The parks people are relentless, and they should be. And we have a wonderful relationship with them now, because we just don't pollute principle. And we've been able to do it for 2 years. We formed a wonderful relationship with them, and God forbid we just continue doing that way. Principally though, the way the place was designed is we don't use cyanide technology. You may hear that in gold plants around the world. The ore body that we have is so clean, we don't actually have to do leaching. We can just sell it as a concentrate. And like I said, we can sell our Scottish gold as well as a gravity. So we hold that high and dear to us, because again, we operate within the national park, and I have 65 Scots that would probably do some nasty things to me and others if we did anything nasty to the environment, and so they should. A graphical representation of what our plan is. Maximise, Cononish is the vein, is what we call it. So maximise the value of Cononish. That is all about getting our mining up to speed, and like I said, I'll talk to you about the mining very soon. And then as soon as we get that up and running to the point we want, it generates cash. From that cash, we'll go straight into growth. And obviously we do that through our people and commitment to sustainability. Not sure if you know reserve and resource statements, but this basically says how much gold we have in the ground. It's a very high grade gold mine. I've been in the mining industry, coming on 30 odd years now. I have never seen a gold mine with this sort of grade. You're up into the almost 12 grams per tonne area. That's obscene. In Australia, it's like 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky, but much higher tonnes as a result. But no, we're very high grade, and I'm not allowed to put money numbers on here, but if you look at the number there of how much gold we have in the ground, it equates to like 300 odd million. Right. Sorry, lag again. 2022. So that's the photo of the porthole, the entrance to our underground mine. Okay, so when we took over in 2021, we took over an asset that we had just completed construction. Sorry about that. I'll keep talking. So we took over an asset that just had finished construction, and if anyone had ever been through construction before, there's a lot of things that should have been done and they kind of weren't, and so on and so forth. We ended up by having to get everything commissioned, ramp it all up, generate our own cash, and then use any bit of that cash to reinvest back into the company to be able to get the processing plant to operate very, very stably. Now, it now runs in about the 90-odd% zone, which is pretty much world-class. So that's fantastic, and all of that work that we did to be able to do that is paying off. We've also put in a tailings thickener, which then takes us to the next level. We don't really need it yet, but the guys have now got about 6 months to really embed that in, so ready for when the mine itself is caught up. Underground mining is a thing that I try to explain all the time to every investor, any person I've ever seen. It's an incredibly hard business. You have to develop it like an ant's nest, underground or termite mound, if that makes any sense whatsoever. You literally got to have tunnels and tunnels and tunnels everywhere. Once you have enough tunnels, then you can actually start bringing out the amounts of ore that you want, and you can start to select the grade that you need. Until you achieve that point, you are literally at the mercy of whatever you see in front of you. Again, I'll take you through that a bit more. So we've done a lot of work in the underground mine this last year, and every single time, every single quarter that we put out a RNS or we'll go out and explain it to people, we constantly explain the mine is developing and developing and developing, and thank God we're 3 months away from stoping. Although I talk about the fact that we are developing and we're reinvesting, we did actually produce 12 million pounds of revenue last year. So we're not an insignificant company. And that was because our grade, we were able to get 10.3, which is still shy of the 12 that we need. We mined 26,000 tonnes, and processing plants recovery sitting at 93%. And that's pretty much due to Mother Nature giving us a wonderful ore body. So 2021, this graph here pretty much sells the story. That was a year of just establishing, getting everything, getting systems, getting training. 2022, reinvesting in the business. And this is our project for 2023, our guidance. We are happy now for the very first time to put out a full annualised guidance. We weren't previously, and that is because of the way the underground mine has been designed. We were stuck with just developing these tunnels everywhere, like the termite mine analogy that I used before. Now we're going to go into stope mining. I'm going to tell you all about stope mining because I love it. Right, graphical representation of what 2023 is going to be about. Effectively, it's one more quarter, which is tunnel developing, and then we go into this wonderful new world of long hole stoping. Now, what is long hole stoping? I'll get to that. Again, as a comparison of 2022 versus 2023, why long hole stoping is so important to us is as we got these lines of how much ore that comes through, it dictates our grade, and grade is a killer in mines. But once we start long hole stoping, this is what the revenue does. We start hitting this magical 2,000 ounce per month mark, which is our 24,000 ounce on a run rate going forward. And that is because I have one stoping area here, and then I have multiple stoping areas there. Once you have multiple stoping areas, and you can just basically rinse and repeat, voila, you have a company that just produces cash. Mining 101. Right, let me explain this. So this was the old mine plan. I just put this up here because we had to change the mine plan through 2023. It was really important because mining companies will constantly battle with this problem, which is when you drill out a resource and you think you really know it, you may do, but you really know it when you start mining, because what's in front of you is what's in front of you. You just can't make that stuff up. When we started, we had about 200 metres of development. That black line on the top represents the amount of development that was done through 2021 and 2022. Actually, it's this one here, my mistake. So we've gone from 200 metres all the way through to the west end, which is a kilometre, just over a kilometre, my mistake. We've put in these things here called CAFs, which are cut and fill stopes, and put in these ramps. And now we're moving up on this ramp, and we're just about here now in January. The CAFs, the cut and fill stopes, was for us to be able to really test a concept, which was that our ore body, even though it's a vein, so imagine a gold vein does this, right? And it's meant to be perfectly flat like that because we all like straight lines like in life. It's not. What it is it down plunges into these big, like plunging sort of zones like this. We've got 3 of them Even though it's a continuous vein, these are our really nice grades. So what we did is we did this calf and this calf here, and that enabled us to get into commercial production because we got to 40 to 50 gram per tonne gold, would you believe? Put that through the processing plant and we made millions. The reason why then we changed the gold, so the mine plan, is originally it was here in the middle, but what we did is we moved it over to the side because it's right in the middle of these two down plunges. So as you can imagine, as you're coming up, every time you come back on the vein, you can go east, you go west, east, west, and you're back into the nice high-grade stuff. Now, what is stoping? Why stoping is so important? Stoping is, trying to point at this and look at this at the same time is difficult. Rather than tunnelling this, it's the taking out of the blocks like that. These blocks can be like 15 metres high and as wide as the gold vein may be at that particular moment. So imagine when you're tunnelling here, this is a 3.5 by 3.5 tunnel, obviously, and you're dictated by the grade that's in front of you. When you start to stope, you've got 15 metres for the same amount of drill intensity, same amount of blast intensity, but then you just blast it, drop it, so you get more tonnes, and you can basically pick the grade that you want. So come May, if I go back, sorry for the delay, that's why getting to stoping and being able to do that, I can then develop in the background. No one will know as we need to develop and develop, but I can then start taking the grade and get ourselves up to 2,000 ounces. Okay, so the mine plan then, again, basically means that by sometime during the year, around about April, May-ish, the amount of stope ore, sorry, bear with me, stope ore starts to take over from the development ore. Once that starts to happen, then all of a sudden, like I said, then we can start to pick and choose the grade and then get to 2,000 ounces. Now, the reason why 2,000 ounces for us is so important is because we've been in this game now for 2 years. We really understand our cost, or all our costs, because as you can imagine, you've got systems and processes in place, you can manage them, you understand what they are. We have a business that's basically 80% fixed, 20% variable. So if you don't get a certain amount of tonnes of ounces out and you just got a fixed cost base, well, then you're either profitable or you're not profitable. So once we get to 2,000, all of a sudden we start to get to areas of revenue into the 20s and 30s, and our cost base pretty much stays the same because, like I said, only 20% of it is variable. Once we get to that point, then we start to get to these numbers. What that signifies is that we're an extremely low-cost producer. Many gold mines in the world are probably north of 700, 900 or 1,000, that sort of area, but we're in this sort of area at the back end of this year. Once we get into full production though, all of a sudden we're at 544. Now that does not even include the Scottish premium. So none of that's been factored. That is just straight out our concentrate sales. So if we put a lot more effort in, and I only say that effort because we've been so focused on getting the mine to be consistent and get the business to be stable and not hurt people and train and train and train. If we start to get more and more of that gold sold, well, that number then comes down, doesn't it? It's a wonderful story, right? Right, but at the same time as we've been busily mining and mining and mining and developing, we've also been growing or looking at where do we grow. So this is our ore body, like I was saying, it's dipping, dipping, dipping. We've only drilled down to here. Now that we've got the 400 in, we want desperately to put drill rigs in and start to see how big this thing is. Whilst at the same time, we've got, not sure which is the best story, but literally got some veins to the right and to the left, southwest, northeast, and at depth. So 3 wonderful targets for us. We've done a lot of soil sampling and sediment sampling and VLF programs, MMS, all these technical terms are basically mean geology without the drilling. If they come up the way we suspect, we have an 8.5-year mine life, we could be north of 16 to 20 odd years. So all of a sudden now we're starting to talk about a legacy. Okay, anyway, this is just a description of the geology and what we do, but it's a VLF, very low. It's just using satellite technology to understand what the ore body is telling us. Again, however, even though that's just very, very close to our vein, we've also still held on tightly to 2,900 square kilometres of land that we want to go out and explore, and then hopefully we'll make multiples of this and spread them all over the place in and outside the national park. Obviously, if they're outside the national park, they'll be a lot easier to get going, but we'll probably still comply to exactly the same regulations as we do now, because that's just good business. Now, I talked about ESG up front, but the reason why we got permitting and the reason why we're allowed to be in the business that we do is because we employed this dry stack tailings, which means we do not have those big compounds of solution and mud that you may hear in places like Brazil, that cave way and the like. We just don't do that. We make a sand product as a tailing, and we put that into the crevices of the mountain that were naturally made or made by Mother Nature. Therefore, by the end of our mine life, all you see if you look up is, rather than a mine with all these sorts of cuts and whatnot through it, it'll be all nice and smoothed out. We don't use cyanide as well, so then in the worst case scenario, if anything does come out of our mine, it's just rock. There's no real dangerous chemicals. Any chemical that we use has to be approved by SEPA. SEPA will only give us approval if it's basically chemicals that they use in their water treatment facility. So that's why we're allowed to operate. Right, so in summary, people, we've gone up 166% since April 2021. We employ over 62 Scottish. We've still got a bit to go, maybe another 10 to 20 odd people to go. We actually, obviously, as you can imagine, when you're training a lot of those people, you have to focus diligently on not hurting anyone so that the HSE are not on your back and that you literally can go home at night and put your hand on your heart to say people came to work, or go home from work as a better place they are. And we have not hurt one person outside of, the normal crushed fingers or, slips and trips, that sort of stuff, but no major incidents whatsoever. And that's not easy to do in mining. Community relationships, as I talked about up front, this is what we have to do, and we do it with pride, is we put a lot of money into the development trust to enable them to get a lot more good work into how to get the Scottish pine to be re-established. Apparently it's very difficult. There's a fungus that grows within the Scottish pine, so anyway, we're trying to help them diligently so that they can get that re-established. We do a lot of tree planting. We've been planting 4,000 odd trees in our particular area. When our people can be, we go down and do a lot of the litter cleanups, because particularly over the summer months when there's a lot of tourists walking around, you can imagine the amount of rubbish that we have to go clean up. We do a lot of work with the universities as well, and apprenticeships, schools. So 2023, why that's exciting for us, again, so sorry it's delayed, is that we start to hit the first stoping mining area in May. Once that starts, all of a sudden this whole thing starts to go in exactly where we want. I understand it has taken a long time, and I understand it's been frustrating, but obviously it's frustrating for us. But we finally hit it. Once we get to 2,000 ounces, we get to 24,000 ounces on an annualized run rate. Then we start making, like I said, about 32, 33 million pounds of cash, of revenue, my mistake, with about a lot less operating costs than that. So our revenue is in the 20s, just to give you an idea. And as soon as we start to produce that sort of revenue, at the same time, we're going to go straight into a drill campaign and see how big this thing can be. Like I said up front, it's sitting in around about the 300 million mark, the amount of resource that we think we have at the moment. If that doubles and we get into 6, we might actually start hitting into the billion. And hopefully that's interesting to people. And who would have thought you had $1 billion worth of gold in your backyard, eh? So as a tabular form, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. But I think I pretty much talked about that all the way through. So that is us. I've got appendices describing all about mining and the like, but you can read that in your own time if you like, unless you want me to go into mining. Otherwise, I'll end there. Thank you very much for your time. Any questions?
Can we turn to questions in the room then? I'll start things off then.
Go for it.
You mentioned the all-in sustaining cost being that low. I just wondered, could you explain sort of why that disparity is quite so large? Is it to do with the grades of the gold?
Particularly grade,
yeah,
and it's particularly the limited amount of processing of the ore that we have to do versus others. So a lot of gold mines would have to attach a full cyanide leaching process to the end of it. a big gold room and elution circuits, and then they'd have to destroy the cyanide, so on and so forth. Our ore, not only is it very high grade, but is extremely clean. What that means is when we go to the market to sell the concentrate, we have people fighting for it. So we get paid in the 90s, as an example, imagine, in the 90% of the gold that's contained within concentrate bags. And we also produce enough silver that basically covers all the costs of transport and refining and treatment and the like. So we get a very high percentage of that. So there is no incentive for us to do any cyanide technology or what. And as a result, we just don't have to have any of those costs. Lime and the like are reagents you have to use in cyanide technology as well, which again, we just don't have to use.
Great.
So it's Mother Nature. Thank you.
Any other questions? One just there.
I live in South Lanarkshire. I mean, just south of us is Lead Hills, where they found Scotland's largest gold nugget recently. Does that mean that there's hope that I'll be coming on?
We do find ones, but no, ours is more like a flower. But every now and then we do get like chunks of that sort of size. I don't think our ore body is the same because, yeah, principally because it's a flower. So what I mean by that is like disseminated tiny little particles within the sulfide hosted vein. It's probably the best way to describe it without using too much geological terms. But no, we won't have big nuggets like that. And it's kind of okay too, because I don't have to spend a lot of money on security, because otherwise I'd have to have security and everyone everywhere, right? So yeah, that's the best way to answer that question. But thank you.
Excellent. Probably got time for one more question.
Ask me about stoping, please.
Got to ask about stoping.
Oh my God, thank you very much. Okay, so stope mining is a principle 101 of underground mining, and why it's so important is because when you build something like this, and it's been a big frustration for us, is that when we handed it over, not enough development was done, and I've been trying to explain so many times to all my investors is we have to get to stoping. We have to get to stoping. Once we hit stoping, imagine you've got 15 metres of ore above your head, and all you have to do is drill a couple of holes, and it just drops. The amount of gold that you can get from that point on just goes through the roof. That's why it's so important.
It's a long hole stoping.
Long hole stoping. And it's retreat as well. And our ground is so stable, we don't have to do any backfill and the like as well.
Fantastic.
Easy mining.